Tom Kelly will not be making it in, I think, any of the work sessions, is because the one he stated that he would make it to was library, and he didn't come to that one for the budget session. That being the case, Eileen said today she couldn't make it. I did get a few notes from her, or thoughts or ideas, and gave her basically what we'd be working on. Gerald's here. So that's pretty much all of us. So as we stated, it's a work session. The work product that comes out of here is not necessarily for public consumption, but we do still tape it, and they can still view it so they can understand where we get our decisions from. Even when we do the budget sessions, I know we've had constituents ask for the budget as it was being presented. That's just in draft form. Nothing that happens here is in completion until we get there. So that's why that's that way. And it will be taped and it will be available, but in time and in process. That being the case, you can see a very, very rough draft of the 8 issues that I see standing in front of us as we select a new administrator as it comes. We can jump from topic to topic as we go from this, but the process of hire, just being more clinical, was the first portion of that. Even as if you look at number 7 was the department head's input. I spent the department head meeting this week discussing what they would like to see, given past ventures and new ventures, what they would like to see in a administrator. So I'll share some of that with you. That being the case, so even as with the process of hire, Terry came into my office today with some things that he's experienced in the past and would really like to see it as a part of the process. He originally had an appointment, so I was going to put him way at the top just for that. But just because I'm a creature of habit and I already told him he could go at the top and then leave, he is available to speak at this point. They were just some fine points or some workable points in how we would do the hiring process. But go ahead, Terry. Chief Williams.
So one of the ideas I had for the council in hiring a new administrator, I was hired by GovHR to help with a assistant fire chief position in Beloit, Wisconsin, and it was a pretty comprehensive hiring process, more comprehensive than I've ever seen in the fire service. And from that, I got an idea that we also used when I was on the hiring committee to hire Stacy Johnson, who ended up being the successful candidate for economic development. And what that was, that part of the process was, you come up with an idea. So I'm just gonna throw something out there. Please don't think that this is the gospel idea. But say alternative funding sources for revenue generation in the city. So that's your idea. You can have bits and pieces of a budget so that the administrator candidates can see what funding sources you already have. But what you do is you take all your administrator candidates, so say there's 6 candidates, and you give them the instruction, you have a moderator. Because I've done this before, I would be more than happy to help you set this up and be any part of it you want. But you have a moderator that explains to them, you are now gonna work as a group. So all 6 candidates will work together as a group while council watches them. And your directions might be to come up with several ideas for alternative funding sources in the city, and at the end, appoint a speaker and present to the council one idea that you could bring to fruition for alternative funding sources. You would expect that anyways out of an administrator coming in, but the advantage of doing this project or this type of a scenario is that as a council, you can sit back and see how these 6 candidates interact with each other. You can pick out which candidates are going to be super aggressive and try and take charge. And sometimes that's great, and sometimes people can get overbearing in that situation. You can pick out which candidates just seem to sit back and let others do the work. So you really get to see what the candidates are kind of made of in a group setting and teamwork type setting. And then you pick one person, and by default, probably the mayor, that if the candidates, while they're working on this project in front of you, so you put up whiteboards for them, you put up flip charts for them, they can use whatever, they can use the internet to look up whatever resources they need. But if they have specific questions, you have one person in your council answer those questions so that they're not, 4 or 5 people aren't chiming in and they're getting different direction. You give them a time limit. You give them 45 minutes. And that's just an example. You might give them 30, but you give them 45 minutes, and they should really be able to, as a team of 6 people, they should be able to put some type of work product in front of you and some type of an idea. And you're gonna find out that teamwork concept, you're gonna find out leadership, you're gonna find out who's gonna sit back and do nothing and then be a part of the presentation. So it really lets you sit back and look at how they work in a group setting. I've been a part of that process twice now, and both times it made the successful candidate really stand out. So it was a really good exercise, and I just think it might be, I wanted to bring it to the mayor because I think it might be a really useful tool for you guys to see how that candidate would work in a setting. Because let's be honest, whether it's with department heads or whether it's with the council, we're all a team that has to work together. So you want to see how that could be done.
Real quick, Terry, even explain, as we look to change the culture and really embrace our department heads to be forward-thinking, to be proactive instead of reactive, and also to have confidence in their skills. One of the sheets of paper that I've even handed out is leadership styles, and then how they hinder certain people in growth. Because there's many different ways to lead. You can be the rescuer, you can be the enabler, you can be the one that pushes quite often. There were a bunch of them, and they all have down parts too. So when we watch our leaders work, they might be a great leader in a style somewhere, but not necessarily a fit for us. So getting to see that really come to the forefront, not just as a presentation, but how would that help our department heads, our city, our culture here in Rhinelander succeed? Can you speak to that at all?
I guess, what are you looking for from an answer? And I'm not asking you to give me the answer.
Right.
What direction do you want me to answer?
Given even from our department head meetings that we've had, where we've discussed that leadership style and the hindrance and goals, how that exercise will help us pick the correct leader for the city that way.
Well, I definitely think it's important for you to, so if you've got, and I picked 6 candidates just out of the air, so you may only have 3. This exercise will work with 3 as well. It'll work with 2. But you can look at the candidates then and see different leadership styles, and there's no perfect leader. I'll stand in front of you and admit that. No, I have no problem doing that. There's no perfect leader. But if you can pick a leader that's got fewer faults than this person, even though this person might look phenomenal on paper, it's all about what you want at that point. And the truth of the matter is, as long as you get somebody that's qualified, you want somebody that can work with you, because work product as a team is going to get done. So I think that's what I look for anyway.
Thank you. Real quick, as we're doing this exercise, if you're writing on the white sheet, I'd really like to collect the white sheets. When we were asked for what we thought we wanted as characteristics or qualifications or whatever, those were collected in a packet and they were dispersed back again too. So that way we just know we have that accountability factor of that. So if you're writing down certain things, you don't have to have it on this white sheet, but certain ideas and things, I'd like to collect those back at some point so I have a reference point. Because what I hear during a work session might be what I want to hear instead of what really is heard or what's pulled out from the work session from everybody here. Go ahead.
Thanks, Terry. Thank you, Terry. A couple things. One, you mentioned GovHR at the beginning of your thing. Can you just clarify for me how GovHR fits into this procedure or this exercise that you were talking about?
I'm not suggesting you hire GovHR
okay.
at all. I just happen to be hired by them to work through a process. So that's why I mentioned GovHR. They were the hiring firm that Beloit used. That's where I learned about this process or this entity in the hiring process. So I'm not
Okay.
suggesting you
All right.
hire a consulting
Yeah,
firm.
so this is something that
Gerald, we got
you're
you.
not saying that needs to be done or
No,
help
no.
facilitated by GovHR for us to do.
We can, I'm telling you that if this is an idea you want to move forward with, I will work extra to help you move this process forward with that as part of your process.
Sure.
You don't have to hire a consulting firm, we can do it ourselves.
Right.
Independently.
My second question too, I don't really want to put you on the spot, but if you could talk about, I guess in the last few years since I've been here on council, and more geared towards like maybe the last few months, the work product that's been done, and that, you know, you mentioned the teamwork. Obviously, I really like what you said about, you know, whoever the leader is or the administrator in the future, you know, obviously somebody who works well with a team to put the work product out there is what's really gonna drive the city forward. So have we been doing better as a team, would you say, within the last couple of years? Have we progressed things forward?
Not within the last couple of years. I would say recently, there's been some definite improvements for the team.
Okay.
All right, you put me on the
No,
spot.
no,
So-
and
no,
that-
I'm,
no.
I don't want you to answer anything
Nope.
you don't feel comfortable answering. I just want to, I
Yeah.
want to do the best that we can do
Yep.
for the
I
city.
have
And you're one of the leaders of our city. You're a department head.
I have no
So-
problem being honest with you, Ryan, so I'm going to be blunt, and I'm going to be brutally honest. This city has not seen somebody that could work as a team since Christina Aschenbrenner. I'm just being honest. Christina was a fabulous leader. She may not have been the most experienced, she may not have been the most credentialed, but she was a phenomenal leader because she gave you the tools and the respect as a department head to do your job. That's how you build a team. You know, you hire department heads as subject matter experts to run each department, whether it be public works or water or the fire department, hopefully, the police department. You know, you truly across the board have a great team of department heads. You need somebody to facilitate those department heads to get your work product done. And we haven't seen that in the last few years. You know, every leader we've had has got some pluses and some minuses, you know?
Sure.
And that's every leader, whether it's a department head or an administrator or an elected official. You know, that's just a fact of life. But I definitely think if you want this city to move forward progressively, like I think it has in the last couple of months, I think you really need to look for a leader that can build a team, that can take every leader or every department head has strengths and weaknesses. So you want a leader that can maximize the strengths and work on the weaknesses. Or if I have a weakness as a leader, a department head, you want to be able to build a team so that there's somebody in that team that can augment my weakness. You know, and I really truthfully believe that that's what this city needs.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Gerald?
Yeah, I have two things. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I didn't get that email from Terry yet. But on this current topic, I think there's a good idea there because it's so hard to write down what it is we want this candidate to look like or be able to do or whatever. There's nothing like seeing it happen to either reinforce or maybe correct what we're writing down, because seeing it actually happen is really the proof of the pudding. We know it when we see it, even if it's hard to describe in writing. So it seems like a very good idea to me.
Thank you. All right, moving on, a couple of things. The other part that you can see in the room is I invited Steve Sauer here tonight. Steve Sauer does a good job of being a historical reference point without interjecting a lot of his feelings on things. So when we talk about historical ways that we've selected administrators and then or searched for them versus new, He's a wonderful historical reference to that point. That being the case, also when we talk about moderators, I know David Holt originally, when we were doing our interview process the last time, and the questions and how they were asked and when they were asked, the consistency factor of that. For consistency reasons, I think having a moderator for that is a large possibility. Did you want to speak, or are you just raising your just an itch and eye? So that being the case, when we discuss moderators or that historical reference point, even if it came for the budget or whatever, I've never seen anybody faster with a calculator, excuse me, a cell phone, figure out where in history of ordinance and or which meeting minutes things were to come up with that answer as it's written in meeting minutes. So I asked him to come tonight just so that he could help us through some of these things when it's the discussion of them. Just from a historical reference, it doesn't, I knew Tom wasn't going to be here, and that pretty much eliminates anything past 2 years of experience, which is about 7 administrators, maybe 5 or 6. I don't even know how many it was, to tell you the truth. But with that reference of it, so that we can go back and say, okay, this is something that we do not want to duplicate. We know that was not successful, or at least from our eyes. Either which way, we get a little bit of that history. So that being the case, if you went over historical, and I know you brought up already, and I don't want to talk a lot, I want this to be a work session, but you brought up GovHR. So when it came to the process of hiring somebody, if we want to discuss that right now versus a new possibility, did you want to give a reference as to the different places we've hired in the past, and then that's the one we have experience with? We don't even know what name to give you.
Steve Sauer.
Yeah, you got to press the button to the right.
That button? Ah, got it. Steve Sauer, citizen, just a citizen. So in the last process, we did use GovHR. In the process before that, we used, and I cannot remember their name, but they were out of Appleton. The other one. 'Cause there's essentially, there's essentially 2 firms every time we traditionally have gone through this process that have come forth and said, we do this and we'll do this. There is a cost associated with it. And I was very curious as to what point you guys were at. And it looks like we're first step is kind of where we are right now. So, okay.
We've posted it locally based on a motion that the mayor, I don't remember what the motion was that was voted upon, the mayor start the search for a city administrator as ASAP. So we've handed out job descriptions from the past, ordinance from the past for council debate back and forth, noting that there were changes even in the time. Do we delay the search before we got there? So there's
Gotcha.
an open-ended search out there, but it's just in the free publications.
So I'll tell you right now, based on my experience with those 2 firms, and this is how the process would go with the firms, because I know you guys missed half of the process last time. Essentially, if a firm comes in, that firm has a contract that's approved by council, it costs some money. They sit down with first the entire council, and then everybody independently, and they create a job posting based on what they perceive at that point we're looking for. So, you want someone with a lot of experience in economic development. You want someone with a lot of experience in expansion of city limits, whatever the issue is, but you're not necessarily worried about budget issues. You kind of create your priority list. And they put that together, and they then advertise the position nationwide. In the past, one of the big things we were always looking for collectively was experience in one department or one direction or another, which is why a broadcast was usually beneficial in finding a large group. The next step of the process is they go forth and they advertise, they accept applications. They then go through the applications and narrow it down to
17.
6 to 15 to 20. Was
I think it was
17 last
17
time?
they brought to
Okay.
finance.
And then the council then narrows it down, No committee should have that decision. My only opinion for the day. Council narrows it down to typically 6 or 7. So the statutory limit on being able to not tell everybody who they are is 6. You must have at least 6 in order to protect their privacy to that point in the hiring process. So at that point, you may do a first round of interviews for those 6, whittle it down to 3, where it becomes a second round of interviews. That's what we did the first time around. This last time, I can't even remember what we did because it was rough. But as you whittle it down to 3, and you do a second round of interviews, it allows you to go a little bit more in depth and a little bit deeper in what they're looking for. And then the council collectively makes a decision, offers a contract, and you've got a new administrator. Now, one thing I will say, especially about being this time of year, is when you talk to these HR professionals, people do not move in the winter. They are not going to accept a job that begins in January, traditionally. And that was one thing that was really pushed in both processes, was that you're looking to have someone start either spring or summer, because the kids are out of school, whatever it happens to be. That was their big push.
Historically, how long did this process take each time? Because I know, and
So
I don't
the
know
first-
how much when Keith was there, they were actually really searching or not. I
Well, the
don't know
first
where
time
that was.
the process was, or the second time the process was, this most recent, it was delayed because we had an election and a whole new council. And they knew, there were several individuals that knew that they were leaving, and I think they just didn't want to make the pick and then run. The first time we went through the process, it was about 6 months from start to finish. So you're in the right time frame to really be discussing this. But it kind of comes down to, if you want to advertise locally, if you want to advertise statewide, if you want to go nationally, if you want to either yourselves or appoint staff to have to sit through and go through all the applications to put together the process, and that's where the consultants come in. It's an A or B. There's some money involved with the consultant. There's some money involved with staff time and or your time. Not that I feel as though any council member should be wading through that, but it's a good it kind of gives you that base and someone to give you direction.
We're also at a different place too right now. Where
absolutely.
Well, what I'm going to say is we are vetting the interview process for an HR generalist.
Mm-hmm.
So we are close to having that position that can collect that information and present it to
But
us.
should an HR professional that works for the city and that will work under the administrator be sorting through administrators' applications?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Okay. And
Would
that's
be-
fine.
would
I'm
be
just,
my-
I'm
That
just.
would be my question back to that. And what the third party does is it really, it takes the personal out of it in a lot of ways, because they don't have skin in the game.
You have something first? Go ahead.
I want to welcome,
David?
are you done? I don't want to, Bogart. I had a question or a comment for Steve, mainly.
Okay.
I'm sorry, for Chris.
Okay.
I can't keep names straight right now. I would be in favor of hiring a consultant. And also doing a nationwide search. And so I wanted to go ahead and get that out there. I think that it aids us in several facets here. I think that we should be looking to the impersonality aspect of it. My experience here in the city suggests that would benefit us quite a bit.
Okay. Further on down, just so you know, some of these discussion points will cross over on some of these issues. Because the counterpoint would be that is the culture of the city of Rhinelander / whatever. I know in the last interview process, as far as when we had it, we'd asked for experience, but then when they came with experience that differed from the state of Wisconsin or otherwise, it was then considered a bad thing. So we asked for experience, but they came from a different form of government or came from something else. So we have to know what we're asking for that way. And that's why, once again, I respect, and I'm not saying that we wouldn't hire a consultant or anything else. I'm just saying that those come with positives and negatives that way. And we'll vet through that as we go through this part of the process. And we're at the forefront of that process as far as that goes. And I'm not, we put it out there. It's left as an open-ended thing now, so we can just accept applications however as it goes. But we weren't, I don't believe, ready to say what we wanted, and to not be ready to say what you want, to ask somebody to bring forth their either skill set or become vulnerable, in that position, again, is not what we need to do to any one person. Tom?
So just out of curiosity, and Steve, you could probably maybe help me answer this. I'm not saying by any shape or form that we shouldn't hire a consultant, but if we got the consultants, how would we ensure that the consultants are asking the questions that we want answered and are looking for the same person we're looking for, if that makes any sense at all? I mean, do we give them a criteria to follow, or?
Yeah.
If I may. Each individual council member speaks with the consultants, and the council as a whole speaks with the consultants.
Okay.
And they literally put together a list of questions that you would want answered. When it comes to the narrowing down beyond that larger number, that's when if you had any specific questions, that's when they would come in as far as those questions, and you would be able to ask the candidates directly in that in-person interview, or they would be asked directly in that in-person interview.
So consultants aren't going to and I'm just trying to understand the process. Consultants don't say, okay, we took your list of what you want, this is the person we chose for you.
Oh, God, no.
Okay, all right.
They
I don't know how
they
it
came
works.
to us with 17, knowing that 5 of the 17 probably weren't in there, but they had some strong attributes.
Right.
But they go through, the idea of experience, not the, locale, not the homebody versus not, depending on the things that we decide that really are important to us, and they whittle those down, and they do have a national search. That is true. They have a national search. With that too, there can be expenses. I know it was in question last time that we had a candidate from Houston where we paying for their hotel and everything else
Yeah,
too.
okay.
I mean, because then all of a sudden you're separating. Heck, when we brought them in as the mayor, we didn't have lunch for them because it wasn't in a budget anywhere to get them lunch when they came in. And I'd really like to have that process nailed down where we say, listen, if we're hosting 3 candidates, we're gonna host them and have a not necessarily a dinner party, but whatever.
We're going to look professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I may touch on that point, for the first go-round, the finalist candidates the city did put them up in a hotel. When Christina was hired, the city put them in a hotel for the night. We did a meet and greet dinner the night before, and then the day of, we did the actual sit-down interview process while they went on tours and
Yeah.
filled out their
It would
paperwork
have been
and stuff
pretty
like
good
that.
for us
So-
to have this as a council the last time, even when we hired the last administrator, to understand what was available to us, because I didn't have any idea, as far as that goes. So that was somewhat, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, one of the things that GovHR, I remember they did, is they're supposed to vet each candidate, they're supposed to do their own mini background, check on their schooling experience, et cetera. And I think that's one of the things that maybe a consulting firm would have some pretty good experience doing. And I'm, like Tom Barnett said, I'm open to different options, but I think that is one good thing that a consulting firm offers. And I guess on top of that, I know you got a question or you want to say something, Steve, but Terry's idea, I really like the thought of that, because you could have every degree in the country behind your name, and it doesn't mean that you are a leader that's good for Rhinelander. So, go ahead, Steve.
And yes, they do the background checks, they do the full, and if there is a candidate that comes to us that has had any kind of a checker in their past, they do straight up say, this is happening right now. We had a couple, there was a sign issue, I believe, with one, and this is happening right now, but it looks like more of a political thing than a actual thing. So they do vet that whole deal. I don't think we've ever had one that was
They even in the last time, they would give, one, they had a 6-month guarantee that if it didn't work out or if something came out, they would come, and work through their fee would not be duplicated again to find another service. But when called and questioned about some of the background check stuff or whatever, went in deeper than the typical as far as that goes to give assurances. So they did, put their name on the line, if you will, that way. Terry? Speaking to the mic, though, just for the sake of recording, and Gerald.
I think one of the things that, Ryan, you kind of touched on, that you guys really have the ability to, if you do look at a consulting firm, you can put together an a la carte menu of what you want that consulting firm to do. So it might be advertise, collect applications, do our initial screening, and give us that list. In the processes that we had, and Steve, correct me because there was parts of it that I wasn't involved in, but in the processes we had in the past, we pretty much handed them a check and said, find us the candidates and moderate and do everything for us. Council asked the questions, council made the ultimate decision, but really the consulting firms we've had in the past have done everything from point A to point Z. You can pick and choose whatever you want them to do. So you might be able to whittle down a much cheaper price because they're only doing, X, Y, and Z for you instead of A through Z. So
It could be the
have that
national
ability too.
broadcast or whatever the case might be. I can tell you, even from that the RFP that went out on housing marketing or whatever, getting 6-8 companies back that came through it, 700 pages, but at the same time, now you can learn how you can select parts of it to get a different price on the different portions. So understanding those consulting contracts has been good for me, at least as far as looking at them and saying, no, this is what we want you to do. Are you willing to do this for this? So we could put a limit on it. So we could have that ultimate advertising with our description that we've come up with. We can streamline, obviously, the process. We're doing that right now by deciding what we want. Now we're just doing the process even, but as we go down through this sheet, we're getting to a more concise profile of what we're looking for. Alrighty. As far as new, once again, we'll probably have another work session, and I know that's, but at the same time, I would like pros and cons for the different portions so that we can have it as a discussion, so then we can bring it to council and actually make a choice on how we're going to do it. Some of the things we heard tonight that I think so far have been important is 1-2 rounds of interviews, moderator, whether or not we go firm or not, deciding on that. The fact that don't look for it to be any quicker than 6 months. We have an idea on how long we need to fill in, or at least at the shortest term portion. Anything anybody else wants to add to those thoughts?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I do want to add one thing with regard to the moderator aspect of it. I don't have an issue with a moderator or not. One thing that I think was, there are strengths and weaknesses to everything, and a couple things that go through my mind. One, obviously, you're probably well aware of how my frustration with regard to the consistency of asking questions.
Yep.
So the risk when you have council members ask questions, especially when they pick the ones that they wanted to ask, is that they don't ask it the same way, and they don't even word it the same way, or it happened last time. So that's something simply. It's not that we can't make sure that we do it consistently, so that each candidate gets a appropriately accurate and same treatment. We certainly can do that. One thing I think was a benefit to having individual council members ask questions, especially with the second round, was it really flushed out whether or not they were paying attention to and reading the local papers. Because the candidates, I noticed some of the candidates would answer very directly and specifically to what was going on in Rhinelander at the time, and others would give a very general answer. And the idea of responding directly to the council member who's asking the question, even if it's an identical question, I think has some merit. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of that. There's a lot of consistency in favor of a moderator as well. It's just an observation.
Okay. Once again, this being a work session, I don't want anybody to believe that the product comes from this. You can still call me, email me, or anything else during the week as far as that goes with thoughts. That's why I'd like even your white sheets back so you can look at them. If somebody underlined something 10 times, they felt strongly about it. You get a lot from that. We as a council don't have much dialogue when it comes to making large decisions that we need to have more dialogue. Going through the past and yet the future, there's different ideas, and an idea might be just a springboard to the next idea, but coming to the best process we can so we can truly succeed in, moving forward with things is my goal. Maybe it's 5 to 10 questions that are always exactly the same by a moderator, and then every council member gets to ask a question. That might be a mixed bag of it, so you have the consistency. But yeah, at the same time, those were definitely issues that we needed to address. Ryan.
I don't know if I really had another question for anybody. I wasn't around when Christina was here, Terry, or Steve. I know, Steve, you were too, but I guess for maybe these other council members and myself, maybe if you could elaborate on, with your experience in hiring different people and what you spoke about, Terry, what would, somebody in that arena look like for you? I mean, what would you want to put down to say this would make Rhinelander great? And I'm not singling out Christina, but just somebody of that character or of that quality that brings out the best in everyone.
Well, and I think that's where the exercise that I described kind of shows that, everybody's got a different perception of what a great leader is. But I think if you put them all together in a group and watch them interact, you get to see that professionalism. You get to see, I don't care if they're in front of an interview panel. You're going to be able to see bullying traits. You're going to be able to see lazy traits. And that's where you're going to be able to say, that person there might not be the top pick on paper, but man, they worked hard and they facilitated a team, and that's what we need to move forward. And I'm only using that, look, everybody here knows that my job and my department is 110% about being a team. We can't get anything done by ourselves. So that's why I'm a huge advocate for a team, and I just think that you get more work product out of a team than individuals working by themselves. So I think that's why I think that that exercise is so important, because you're going to be able to see those personality traits.
We'll cover that too also in the department head's input, because one of the other parts that's strange with this is one, even when Terry will talk quite often about the fit. Now, being a fire department where they live with each other for 48 hours, you better have a good fit with the people around you. Now, your finance director, who basically has an office alone and just looks at numbers, is going to be more about accuracy. So when we get down to that point, I will share that with you, and we'll also talk about their part of the process when it comes to selecting that person. Because one of the things is it varies quite a bit from department to department. And Terry knows right now, even if you brought up Christine, there would be 2, 3 that might not say the same positive things.
Oh,
now,
yeah, clearly.
And I'm not bringing up names makes it different, but the whole idea of what it is to make that person a leader has to do with the position you're underneath for that. So we'll talk about that also, just so you know. Yep.
I just want to tag on so that everybody and listening to the mayor speak right now, I think maybe some of what I said might have been a little bit misunderstood. And what I meant by bringing up Christina is that I think Christina was the most well-rounded leader that we've had. Leaders that we've had since or before have had great traits and some horrible traits, but we're all going to get positives and minuses. I just think that she was about the team, and she was able to get the team rallied together. So that's why I think that, obviously I've talked enough about team. You guys get where I'm coming from, so.
Thanks, Terry.
All right. Moving down, just so we can get through this, it's not a 9-hour session. We are number 1, is wage. Now, the reason I say wage is just because also in the last section, we had a variety of choices that were eliminated by the wage as it was. Wendy sent out an email to us, I think to all of us, and if not to me, to share with you, about just the cost of the buyouts, even on the last 2 or whatever. If that's $70,000 with 50 going to one and 20 to another or whatever, where could that be made up? Obviously, is you put it in the original investment in the person. Now, as we talk about wages, we talk about budgets, we talk about COVID and cuts and whatever. But I want you to understand, though, that wage is a consideration when it comes to a more experience, if that's what you want to go for, a more highly successful because they were driven at some point. You're going for a competitive market employee rather than one that's going to come here, which is, you're talking about the broad net nationally, so you can find that too. Those being the cases, wages is a consideration, and I just want to put that on the forefront of people's minds. Steve.
If I may, my time is very short. I do have a wage historical, just a quick point, that everyone should remember. So on the last round of hiring, the wage range was from 85 to 95. The round of hiring before that, I believe it was from 75 to 85. In that last round of hiring especially, anyone that was currently an administrator anywhere else that we saw information on was making typically 115 to 130. So if we're offering 95 max, we need to realize that we're going to get what you get for 95 max. If you're offering 115 max, and people still came in and requested the higher amounts, but I even in that, you guys saw the last, in that last group, there were, I think, 4 out of the 5 or 6 that were nowhere in the ballpark. And my thought on that is you really need to compare the buyouts to that extra to figure out where you want to land.
And it's
and
not
what
even the
experience you
buyouts. There's projects that start and don't get finished. There's a substantial amount. I know even just in hiring a consultant, the first thing I did on my board downstairs was started a list of savings that we had during that time. So the worth was tangent to people. When you save this much because they caught this or did that, it becomes very, very tangent, very, very quick as far as what we can do. Proactive nature in lift stations. Heck, I got a report today from a department head that in having a service company in town, he extended their thing by 1 day, turned around, and in that had a multitude of savings / founding problems before they ever happen with our lift stations. So allowing that flexibility so that money works one of two ways, negatively or positively. Those are just the truth of life. You can make it roll to a positive, or you can make it keep disappearing in a negative. You both turn your mics on, so,
No, I just kept mine on.
okay.
But
Nothing?
but I do have. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Steve so you can sit down.
Can I just hit my, I've
Yeah.
actually got to run
Okay.
in about 8 minutes, so I figured I'd throw out my other couple of points, and if there were any other questions, they could be thrown at me, and then I can go back to being a citizen. But
You are a citizen.
You came here as a citizen.
Yeah, you're nothing but a citizen,
yeah,
man. Just-
ain't nothing but a,
Actually, we're in a
Survey
work
says we
session. I'm not
all
even sure
are
they're council
citizens.
members right now, if it's just a work session, but.
department head input. So I believe on the first round of hiring, we did not have any department head input. On the second round of hiring, we did have a lot of department head input. That first round of hiring, correct me if I'm wrong, that was kind of a point of contention with the department heads, that they did not get to talk to the candidates when they were being interviewed. Whereas that second round, I heard from a couple of different people that they felt more included. Whether or not the opinions are taken is one thing, but when I see it, that's an A or B thing as well. Either you have it or you don't. And I've seen it both ways. Like I said, that first time there was some contention. The second time it was more of an inclusion feeling. Again, not that they should necessarily pick the person that is going to be, but at least get to be able to have an opinion on the issue. A moderator, you guys are talking moderator. I definitely see the benefits of a moderator, especially, like you said, in the first round of interviews. And this is entirely based on nobody knowing where to look. If you sat through interviews, the candidate never really knew
Audience.
where it was coming from, because there was jumping around and this and that. And I did see an awful lot of kind of jumping around, and if you're uncomfortable, you might throw someone off just because they're in a job interview, and we all know job interviews, and they might throw out something that 20 minutes later, when they have a chance to think about it, they go, no, that was ridiculous. You know, I just, jumping around at least seemed to be difficult for the applicants. And the other big one that I would have helped in both cases would be defining accountability off the bat. Because it was very difficult to have any accountability based on ordinance and based on contract. There was one candidate in the first round, and I have no idea what the name was, that said, or they asked the council, what is your performance review form look like? Questions for the council. What does your performance review look like? And I'm sure because they wanted to know, how am I going to be held accountable? And they were told we don't have one. So as you're looking at what you want, remember that what you want can not be cannot be
Achievable.
fulfilled or achieved unless there's some sort of accountability there. And without that applicant knowing what the accountability or what level of questioning or whatever their world is based on, it becomes
Just so the
virtually impossible.
Yes, just so the council aware that it fits under number 8 and what it is, work
Exactly.
product, chasing tails or deliverables. And what it means is you can't give them something every week and expect them to chase their tail to turn around and deliver something, especially not anything excellent or worthy of probably the product they can put out if they know. So we need to figure those out, what our work product deliverables we want that way. You can see it in the scope when it comes to RFPs, they have them listed and they have what they can deliver at what time. You saw it in Zach's last one where he had dates even set up in those RFPs where this will be this, by this date will be this, and those even move, but at the same time they're deliverables, so you have that accountability. You're like, well, where is this? So anyway, thank you very much, Steve, and excellent. Okay, doke.
Before we move on from the wage, I was always under the impression that we should set a wage scale, and I always thought it should be higher. I don't know if that's accurate or not, or if it's a good thing, but I've talked to somebody who has a lot of experience with a lot of different municipalities, and they shared their perception on Rhinelander as we're kind of in a price point where even if we were to offer $125,000 or $130,000. This is an area where we may be getting somebody who is newer in their career or at the end of their career. Maybe not somebody who is in the middle of their career with a ton of experience and that needs to have that certain wage scale. So I guess I have mixed feelings on whether we broaden our wage scale from 85 to 115 or something like that, or if we just kind of stick to the middle and hope for somebody who's ambitious that is looking for a challenge and is hopefully a good leader and brings out the best. But so I guess I would be curious to see what everybody else thinks as far as the scale, given what I've said and what somebody with some experience, maybe how they feel about Rhinelander.
Carrie. Sorry.
No,
Dave,
no,
no,
I want
sorry.
them to go
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I would like to.
Okay.
I guess my feelings based on wage right now is the least of our concern. I think we can figure out wage once we figure out what type of person we want and what's it going to take to get to that point.
Yeah. This drives it only slightly because then one of the things that I can tell you with that is as you go down and we even get to talent, expertise, character, as we list those as our wants,
That's my point.
they change.
Like if we want
Yeah.
a higher experienced person, you're going to have to pay for that experience. So I think wage should be one of the last things we discuss, to be, in my opinion. I think we need to figure out what attributes, what characters, what characteristics, all the other things that go into it. And then based on how we want that, what's it going to cost us to get somebody in that way? And then obviously you need to have a range. You can't just say it's going to be, this exact amount, because it is going to be based a bit on experience as well. But that's just my opinion on wage. I think it's later on.
Did you have something, Tom?
I'd actually like to hear what Dave has to say.
Okay. I was just wanting to listen to everybody else first. So, but
Mine's
I'm-
pretty short and sweet, so you go ahead.
I'm happy to do it either way. So I do have some thoughts on it. One of my early mentors in academia gave me some interesting advice when I was writing an article, and he said, you don't have a conclusion section written. I was like, I just started writing it. It's like always have a target of knowing where you're going to land, even if that target changes. And I think that we do need to have some ideas of our ability when it comes to wage, what we're willing to do early on, because that shapes those wants and such as well. A couple things that I want to do. A couple comments I want to make. One kind of bleeds into number 3 a little bit here, but echoing what Ryan said, I think that we need to think, if we're going to think long-term, we need to think about you don't skimp, you don't nickel and dime on certain things, because if we're talking about the difference between 95 and 115, we're talking about $20,000 a year in terms of wage itself, right? How much of that gets taken care of in an administrator that's willing to, that's able to pull in a big grant, who's able to go after investment dollars? How much does the city save by having a competent administrator? The wage becomes a smaller and smaller portion of when you look at that. So not skimping on that. Being willing to broaden it, I think, has merit. Although this is something that I admit that I don't have a huge amount of experience in personally. One thing that I will say about experience on number 3, though, I personally am not, I'm not averse to the idea of giving opportunity to somebody who's younger in their career, not younger in age, younger in their career. And I felt like there was a significant resistance to that earlier with the last go-round of hiring that I was a part of, that there was a significant resistance to giving an opportunity to somebody who didn't have as much experience necessarily, but there's huge benefit, especially with the things that Terry Williams said about leadership. There is immense opportunity with somebody who's willing to grow with the city.
It's talent.
Yes, I
And
understand.
her
I jumped
character.
ahead a little bit. I
that's fine.
apologize.
No. Actually, I want everybody to understand that this was just a rough draft for us to get together and talk. If I could call it something different in a work session, it'd be a summit. And the whole idea of here is our individual and our talents, bringing them together with history experts, with department heads, and even spending more time with this. The problem is we all know that time is of the essence that way. That being the case, one of the things I'm going to tell you is that even the value of having this session on tape, when somebody comes to apply here, they can see exactly what we struggle with and what we want and some of the things we value and come to the conclusion in what we value. That's a powerful tool because they get to see us, reach out and say, this is an option. If there is more talent, if there, whatever. That being the case, a couple things I want to touch on before I get to Andrew is, one, we got to recognize when it comes salary, part of the things that happen here is we get pushed by our constituents, but then we also get pushed by the community of Rhinelander. The community of Rhinelander is 25,000 people. The city of Rhinelander is 7,500 people. That being the case, our means and then being able to do the things that stretch out and help the community as a whole, are we willing to take that risk? I can tell you that right now we're working on better county relationships, so that risk is helped tenfold that way, where we understand who we are. Dealing with contracts and stuff like that, we're going to have to do those things that deal with who we truly are as Rhinelander, the city, versus, and those are two different issues. One's getting a product out, and the other one is how does it get paid for? The other part that I would like to stress is desirability. The desirability of the Northwoods right now is actually high. I've said it before in different arenas. Right now, we are the only city in Wisconsin that can prove we have safe water. I mean, that counts. And we're moving towards even removing it more. We have great school, we'll go with the dome going up and stuff like that. So Are some of those bargaining chips when we have those? Yes. Young talent versus experience? Yes. Not setting firm numbers so that they don't understand, and then there's the accountability of what happens with that. That allows that flexibility to move and maneuver the way we need to move and maneuver. So one, I would say even just having this recorded right now, man, if I'm somebody in Indiana that I don't quite know if I want to, and then I look up and say, wow, they're willing to discuss this stuff. They're not just 115 is what we're going to pay, this is what we want, and you better do this. And you'll get fired if you don't. We're not that. We're going to coach it to that next level. Tom? Oh,
No, Andrew.
don't look.
No, you go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead. Turn your mic on.
Hey, wait a minute. Did somebody, do we have tissue here?
After co-chairing last night, I'm
Oh, yeah.
going to speak up here, so watch who you're talking to. Anyways, David, I agree with you 100%. And even going into this again, I feel it's going to be totally different because we're not going to be telling people what they're going to do. They're just going to know what to do. So, but David, I agree 100% on the experience because we had some pretty good candidates that were inexperienced that didn't even get thought of. Just because we had to get it right, and it's-
They got thought of, they just got manipulated out.
Well, yeah, no, but and that's, you had an attorney telling us what we had to have, what we,
Okay.
and
Just, we're on record too.
I don't care. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, really, it was the truth. We were told
Yeah.
what we were gonna get. We didn't have a say on who we could pick, but going forward, the city knows now what we need and what we're looking for, so it's gonna be easier to.
And we're working through the process to find even the fine details. Even if we hired GovHR, if that was the case, right now, they already have 70% of those first interviews by listening to us speak here, So their work product is less just based on us doing this part. That's my point, is there are parts we can do, we don't have to pay for. We're not that way. We can put the work in.
So,
Yeah, no, that's.
You done? Sorry.
so there's no way I can say what I want to say as eloquently as David said it.
Yeah.
But I do agree with David 100% on what he put across. My simpleton terms are, it's very simple, you get what you pay for. I mean, that's an old saying, but it's never rang more true.
I agree and I disagree. And this is what I'm going to say when I say I disagree is wage is important, but when we look at the candidates and truly put that fit together, that's when you get because it's what you're going to work with too.
Right.
So it's not even just pay, but how much are you going to invest in that person? If they are lacking experience but have talent, are we willing to coach? If they're, not good at this, are we willing to help them out in HR? I.e., we put our HR generalist out there because HR has been a thorn in our side as a city for a long time. So now we don't have to say, well, we need an administrator with great HR. No, we have somebody to help with those things.
Right. I was going to backtrack on that after I had said it. I was making a point about you get what you pay for, but like David said, if a young go-getter does come in that is missing, a couple of things here and there as far as experience goes, then I would rather have someone coming in that's like raring to go and wants to make a stand and wants to prove themselves over someone who's just going to go through the motions and collect a nice big paycheck. That's where I was getting with that. I forgot what else I was going to say, but yeah, I agree with you 100% on everything you had said, David. So I think we need to be taking all of that into consideration.
100% him?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, geez, man, cricket.
Well, kind of like what Carrie said, I don't think our wage necessarily has to be our number one step. If we have a broader range, we might get somebody who we see with great potential, great leadership skill, that maybe doesn't have, 20 years of experience, that is accustomed to making $120,000 a year from Oshkosh or wherever. So maybe instead of having that narrower, like Steve Sauer said, what did he say, like the first year was 75 to whatever, and the next was 85 to 95, if we have a broader range, and then we see our list of candidates, and, maybe there's somebody newer, like, if Andrew really grasps onto somebody who has great skill, and maybe they don't capture as much of a need for pay in their early career, that might not be a bad thing for Rhinelander. So I didn't really understand what you said when you get what you pay for, because that comment made it sound like dollars are what drives the person.
Right. No, that's not what I was intending.
You're talking about quality.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I understood that too, and that's
Yeah.
why I wanted to change it to how much we invest in them.
Right,
Because we might invest less in dollars, but a whole lot more in our efforts to make sure they succeed.
Right.
And we're going to invest in the next
yeah.
candidate, no
Yeah.
matter what it is,
And-
one way or the other.
And I remember what I was going to end with was, you are absolutely 100% right when you said if we can get someone in, and even if we pay a little bit more than what we would like to, if we get the right candidate in that does go after those grants and goes after all that, it's going to pay for itself, because it's going to come in on the back end of it. So it'll even out too. So these are all things that we got to really think about.
All right, once again, for sake of time, we're going to just move on, and that doesn't mean that I'm shortcutting any one of these parts. You definitely can throw out emails, and we'll collect them, and at the next work session, have a thicker packet if that's the case, but we're going to do it right. We're going to get it right this time. Hey, Andrew? All right. Talents, experience, character, leadership, and credentials. I'd like to understand everybody, if they were to do a 10 on down, and you could only give one number to each one, where you would put this, just so we can share that amongst each other and understand what we value that way. I know it's going to come out differently when the candidates come before us, because someone might have a good blend of one or the other, but this is simply just a real simple exercise of, if you're going to do 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, give a value to each one of those characteristics, and if you want to add more of them, you feel free. Yep, 10 being the highest value. So we can just do a simple math add up of where our council sits when it comes to those values, so we understand the value of our council moving towards those things. That if you want to share, you want to discuss in any way, shape, or form. This part is just a very simple thing that when it becomes more passionate, because we're actually discussing real-life candidates in front of us, we can still refer back to it, that the totality of a council, because sometimes the squeaky wheel gets, as you said before, they got eliminated or didn't get eliminated based on 1/3 by somebody who was louder, but it really didn't represent the total values of our council. And we speak as one council, and I don't want anybody to feel like we submitted our voice on something that was important based on who was loud that day or wanted something a certain way, or whatever the case might be. We can make a solid decision. Moving on to number 4. The ordinance, the job description, and the structure of our current workforce. The reason I put this on here is, as we talked about, when we look for a candidate, we asked before that they were strong in HR. Whether or not we got it, we had people strong in HR, at least with their dealings with their department before, that were cut real short, and then other ones that maybe weren't as strong, but that was what they were hired for. That being the case, the structure of our workforce and our current workforce, we also did those decisions based on, like, we had a public works director, so therefore they didn't need to dabble in that, and now they might need to. I want us to have a very succinct vision of where our workforce is right now, and to ask that question if we don't know, so that you can get that back. Right now, we're going too deep in our leadership. Most of our department heads, even sometimes, Terry will have Tom there with him. Lloyd would have Captain Ron or Detective Camilleri come. they've had that fill-in, so it goes too deep. So the information now is too deep. It's not held by one person. When somebody has too much institutional knowledge, that makes them very valuable, and at the same time also probably outweighs their true value to the people because they feel handicapped. So those things change. So as we look at our job description, as we look at our ordinance, and I've gotten back from Gerald and I think it was Carrie or Eileen, maybe somebody else, what they thought the discrepancies were, but just so we understand as we move forward how those things happen. I also put this down because they can adjust on the fly. Eileen pointed out real quickly today that one of the job descriptions of the administrator was the org chart. And to come in and place an org chart when you don't even know the personalities of who could do the job or anything else to move up or down or whatever. So I likened it to they should be able to amend the org chart. And that, therefore, it comes to us with why they would do it or anything else, but it gives them that position. Right now, Terry and Lloyd are supposed to respond to me, but they still talk to the administrator or whomever all the time because he's going to make the other decisions that affect them. Well, if you're reporting to someone else other than who can affect your job anyway, is it really outside that org chart? So understanding truly how we function, how we can function, and empowering one of those department heads to make those choices on their own at this point too is stronger. Terry, yes. To the mic.
Just to be clear about the org chart, that was developed to micromanage people 110%, and it totally tore apart the team. So just so you're aware of that from the past.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Even now, as we rebuild the culture, you realize that the org chart still sits as a stumbling block sometimes because people are like, well, I have to do this to whom and how. Not the case. Yet it does serve as a function, it serves as a purpose, it does give people organization and order. It sets accountability factors at the different levels of the org chart that might not have happened before. We've talked about accountability a couple times today too. So these are policy issues. You know, when I talk about council directing policy, that as we set our leadership up to success or fail, we need to consider. Discussion? Yeah.
Didn't Steve, was it one of the meetings we had where Attorney Sorensen or somebody had mentioned that under the city administrator section of our ordinances, it was really, it encompassed a lot of things, maybe too much. So if that's the case, I really think that we should, sit down, kind of like we are, or come up with something to tweak this to what we want our city administrator to be and to do.
I can tell you even job descriptions as they sit now, as we look for succession planning for the clerk, when we look for some of those things, what we've done is we've kind of trimmed our budget by staff for the most part. There used to be 3 girls in the front office or, whatever the case might be, a payroll and whatever. As those got condensed, they were never listed in the job descriptions or figured out or whatever. It was just more of a cost savings idea. So you don't know what's there and what's not. And this also lends to the chasing of the tail when somebody's doing something, i.e. right now with HR incoming, I think our streets department now is at full staff. Our wastewater department's at full staff. Our water department has hirees coming. Yeah, so we're almost to that pinnacle, but it's taken up, I'm going to say at least a good 30 to 40% of Zach's time is doing just the hires or, making sure those things are happening right. Mm-hmm. Well, with the HR generalist, that'll free that up to give some other balance. But how do we really want to see that? We knew we had to fix HR. There was just no doubt about it. That's why we did that one as far as a new position pretty much first. David?
I have a question. Since Ryan raised the ordinance, I'm just curious, if we were going to update this ordinance, which takes several council meetings to do, is this something that we would really need to do before we hired a new administrator, or is it something that we would work on after? concurrently?
I would
with
say
it?
concurrently. I think our council needs to figure out the policy of how we set direction so we give stability. And then that gives the next person, even myself or anybody else, that decision-making factor on the databases for work product. Because I'm not going to invest a lot of time in work product and coming up with a job description that we're no longer either going to want or we wouldn't want to expand on. So it's kind of a concurrent thing where we figure out where we are now, how it can be amended if it needs to be, but at the same time, fits our staff, fits our city, fits our needs, fits our growth pattern, fits what we're doing. Yeah, it's work, but as we see here today in Gerald leaving on Zoom and whatever, we have a council and we have a leadership group that's willing to work. We're not afraid of working, But do I think it should be concurrently? Yes, I do, because the questions will arise on both sides of it.
I don't want to lean on Steve Sorensen for everything, but, he's well-versed on some of the, some of the things that he's seen in different municipalities. And the question is, where do we start with making some of these adjustments? I can look through this and read through this and maybe give some of my opinion, but how do we, you talk about concurrently doing this with the hiring of a city administrator, with Steve, working together, how do we get this done?
Right now, as we are functioning, and Zach's doing a great job of it. How long or whether or not he'll apply or anything else, I don't know. But giving him work product when it comes to it, he's come up with other city job descriptions for things that I have not introduced at this point because I don't want to nitpick details when we're looking at the general scope. There's no reason for us to sit in the weeds on a detail right now when we have bigger fish to fry. But at the same time, if we were to give him that, say, listen, the ordinance based on what you do today or advise the mayor on doing and whatever, where would you cut / grow / whatever? And some of that would come from guidance even from us, because even as we're doing it, we're like, okay, we shifted gear quickly on housing. Yet at the same time, we're making tons of progress on that. So some of it's opportunity as it comes. So they have to have that flexibility. But at the same time, that would be my consideration was I would tell Zach, give him what you know, or, look elsewhere. We could maybe do, once again, a consultant we got $500. We want you to look at our ordinance and trim it, and they might take him, they might not, but they would understand. There's IHR, whatever. But so there's other places where we can do that sort of thing. I think we sell ourselves short quite often when it comes to us working together. I really do. I think there's a lot of work we can get done by ourselves and then turn around hand off for a $500 project, not a whatever. Even with Steve Sorensen, with using our attorney, I think we need to do some before work always and then hand it to him and say, legal, not legal, best practice, 10 minutes, go, so that we can limit those bills. We've been handicapped by being in flux. That's the reality of what it is. Yet we don't have to be. One, asking Terry, different things and using our own department heads, they don't have a problem coming up with what they think is best practice. We don't have to take it, but we already now have 2 parts done before we ever get to the next one. I know the first thing that we talked about pay-based, performance-based pay as far as that goes, not being anywhere near it yet, but making those movements with job descriptions. So we are already working towards something incrementally where people can absorb that change.
I think we need to start moving forward on this if we're going to do it.
The first part was myself handing it back out and saying they don't jive. Next was getting back when they don't jive. Next is talking about it so we can say, okay, they don't jive and we want this to look this way, or we really want to embrace our new administrator with the ability to get this done. So we're going to make it possible. Terry.
Super easy. The league's website, CivMix website, all have administrator job descriptions that you can search and read. And you can take the best parts of whatever you find there and meld them into the worst parts of what do you think ours is? So I don't.
Yeah, there's resources out there. There's, like I said, if we directed staff, I'd say, all right, Terry, come up with the best administrator description you can as a fire chief. And then I could take finance and say, the best job of, because they're going to be a little
That's a
different.
good idea. Maybe Terry.
Yeah.
Terry, get on that.
So what you're saying is
Say,
fire
stand up with the
chiefs
mic.
shouldn't come to meetings
Yeah,
anymore?
yeah, stand up with the mic and talk. It's dangerous. Tom?
We don't direct staff.
I know.
Just,
You direct me to direct staff.
I wasn't
Really?
I was a suggestion.
Yeah, I think it was a voluntary, to tell you the truth.
I do say that, although I think it was late, because I was super busy, but I gave Chris an email, I sent Chris an email about because I looked over the job description of the city administrator, and I gave him a bullet list of things that I saw didn't really jive or whatever.
Sorry, I didn't.
I think everyone should do
And that was when we have dead fast deadlines. That's
Yeah.
my problem with dead fast deadlines
Yeah.
is when it comes to those things, if I say I need this by this so I can put that out,
Yeah.
well, it's out.
Right.
That doesn't mean it can't be amended or worked on.
Yeah.
I mean, I really want everybody to understand that. You can't necessarily fail if you're willing to try again. You can make a bad decision, and you just try again. We don't have to make 100% perfect.
Right.
When it comes to projects or anything else, too, I want an A on everything. But if I get a C and we move forward as a city, we move forward as a city. If we can then amend it to make it a B, cool, let's do it. That's the way we will function as far as that goes. That's why we have meetings every 2 weeks. It's not to make sure we get everything done. It's pretty near impossible, trust me, to get done the stuff we think we're going to get done in those 2 weeks. But we can make a better product out of the stuff we did last time, or we can do whatever. We have that ability to change it consistently. It just takes work.
Point being that I think that's the logical first step for all of us to make sure that the job description is what we want it to be in searching for the right candidate, or just amending what our chosen candidate is responsible for. So I think that we should all take that next step. You have mine. I don't know if anybody else has turned anything in, but for me, that's just the logical next step, and then we work on it from there, so.
Anything, Andrew?
Is, seeing that we're hiring for an HR position downstairs, or part HR, whatever,
It's called a HR generalist.
would that be a shared responsibility, or would the administrator?
And that's where it's a little bit different. That job description is written, and you can look that up in NeoGov. I don't have it in front of me, otherwise I'd read it off to you. But as that happens, those duties go to that person, but they answer to the administrator at this point. He is in charge of that. My job is to make sure the administrator does his job. That's,
Okay.
that's how it flows. The problem is right now I'm the administrator in lieu of with a consultant to get there. That's the other part that's confusing, is I'd really like to get back to 3 legs where that's just my job, is to make sure it's happening, not how is it going to happen, when's it going to happen, did it happen yesterday? That's an administrator's job.
Okay, that's what I was hung up on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, nothing else, we're moving on. Mutual understanding and relationship with the CAO. This has also been confusing because we've been told at times that he's just an employee or anything else. He's the chief administrating officer at that time, which what's that?
He or she.
He or she, yeah, I'm sorry, well, sorry. I got it. They are, and they need to be treated with that type of respect. That's something that has been confused, and even myself treated like I should be either babysitting or checking every part of it. That's not how I function. I function on relationships. You build trust, you grow, you build trust and you grow. But you start out with the respect that they're the CAO. So when we do look at this position, young with talent, experience with whatever, understanding that that's what they're assuming as soon as they get hired, is they are the chief administrating officer. They're the ones to get the things done during the day. They're the ones to move the product forward. What does that entail in understanding how we function as a council to them, how they function to their team, you know, how they place their team together, how they function with all the little duties they have and how that moves forward is an important understanding. This is more or less on here just as a point of, we've been through quite a few administrators, and I'm pretty darn sure that this might have been key into why each and every single one of them failed to this point to stay on with us longer, is we didn't understand what a chief administrating officer was, either before we hired him, when we hired him, or otherwise. I want people to understand what that relationship is before we ever get another person in that seat permanently, and to hold it dear, because my part of holding people accountable, I don't want to feel like I'm heavy-handed. I don't want to feel like anything else with that discussion. I'm not saying those discussions won't happen, because they probably still will happen. Yet at the same time, I want people to understand it comes from the fact that that foundation of what that relationship is like is what's going to set us forward for success. If we say we're going to enable you to do this, we're going to enable you to do this. You had something to say?
Yes. To add to that, very well said. One thing that I want that I would like to see for each council member is to take that to heart in terms of their relationship to the chief administrative officer position, whomever that may be in the future, because the relationship between council member and that, and then the relationship of the entire council to the chief administrative officer, I think is a very important thing. I think that was that was not clearly laid out, and I think that was not adhered to in the past 2 years that I've been on council. So that's something that's on us as individual council members.
It's a truly broken culture, and we can ask Terry too. Did you get confused at time of who your boss was? Council, you know, administrator? But it's been a culture where it's been pretty prevalent where, who do I answer to at this time? And that shouldn't be the case. That should not be the case. We hired a professional. Gerald? Oh, how you doing, Gerald? Yep. All right. That needs to be understood now, so that we give that next person that gratis to do their job. All right. The culture of Rhinelander and the culture of City Hall. A couple of the issues that I wanted to bring up with this is the culture of Rhinelander is definitely changing. It's changing from the concept of we say no to stuff to we say yes to stuff, and we enable people to do that. That's intergovernmental contracts when it comes to working with the county. It's also with our partners that we have contracts with and understanding those contracts. And then also the tempo of the city. What does the city hold dear? I think we all know, as we were represented on our votes, that we are a change. That being the case also, it was not only a change, but it was a 65-35% change on most cases. That being the case, empower yourself to understand, you understand what our constituents are, that the culture of Rhinelander is to put us in a team, you know, to support our department heads, to give them what they need. We're going to do the 6-month and the 12-month goals over and over again, so that we can see that we're achieving them, and we can challenge our department heads to pick bigger goals or loftier goals, so we can move ahead faster. The tempo of our city is, we need change. What is that tempo and where is it? That's part of the part that's confusing at times, which also leads us to chasing the tail, understanding and being gracious during those times. We went through COVID. It was a time where we had to extend a lot of grace. I mean, we're still going through it, but at the same time still made a lot of monumental change here in City Hall. City Hall itself has changed. There's retirements happening. There's other things happening that way. How do we become a very efficient functioning group? I can tell you that the transfer of information is a really hard process as a part-time mayor, as a part-time, you know, whatever, as people come and go. You have moments together, you know, to express the information, what's happening, and then moving on. We'll streamline that hopefully with technology and some of the other issues, yet at the same time, we are still in that process. When it comes to the new administrator or whatever, sharing that and then the fact that it's expanding. I can tell you in records retention, one of the softwares that they just looked at is phenomenal, you know, to be able to separate and put our records in place. It's great. So hopefully we start moving forward with those things. Having somebody that embraces that change. Obviously now if we have to go to Zoom, we can go to Zoom. You know, we're figuring those things out. Microphones, we can speak and the people can hear us. It's much better. So
I haven't had to change any batteries yet.
I know, isn't that beautiful? Yeah. The culture of City Hall here is not we're going to run around with a battery pack anymore. It's where we get to speak, get through a meeting, and everybody can hear. So that part's there. That's just for my talking points, but you're willing to discuss that as far as when it comes to that administrator search, how the culture change of Rhinelander would affect your decision-making in that, and then also even the culture in City Hall as far as that goes. Anybody want to offer anything? And this is not a bashing session. It's just merely this is what we need to do.
I just think a culture of fear is terrible. There's other places that lead their organizations that way, and that's not how I want to see the city of Rhinelander operate.
I think the changes that have occurred in Rhinelander and City Hall have been very noticeable. The air seems a lot lighter. And I think our search for an administrator, I think future administrator is going to see that as well. And I feel that, like Ryan said, threatening, using fear and stuff, that is absolutely no way to run a city. We have to empower not only our administrator, but encourage that administrator to empower the department heads as well in a positive way. So.
Amen. All right, moving on. Oh, I got to talk again now, though. Department head input. Once again, Terry volunteered to be here. Even, I don't know that he changed the appointment, but changed the appointment to stay. I didn't request them to be here for this portion. This portion really is our work. So to ask them to chime in all the time, although they'd be glad to, this is still our work to figure out our direction. But that being the case, you talked about department heads that we took input from before and versus not. We listened to them last time and did exactly opposite of what they asked for. That will not happen again. I'm going to tell you that because I have to spend every day with them. And to tell you the truth,
You get to spend every day with them.
Yes, I do. I have to. Get to. Sorry. Once again, yeah.
No, I'm just letting you know what you're really thinking.
No, it is.
It's just coming out wrong.
To tell you the truth, and when I say have to, I mean when you guys make a decision that sucks, I have to. I know. Because that is the case of it. You represent the council.
Are you saying that we've made decisions that suck?
Terry, do you want to stand up? Yeah, exactly. It's funny how I speak for them just as much as I do my constituents. One of the things that is strange being the mayor and then also even having the administrator somewhat saddled role is my job is really just to make sure this is working best for the city. That is my job, is to make sure it's working best for the city. And when that's the case, I can tell you happy working departments that work with teamwork, that feel a part of it, work harder and work more passionately. There's no doubt about it. My father taught me if you work next to your employees, you work harder than them, they'll work hard for you. I don't doubt this one iota. That being the case, if we make a decision that shorts them somewhat or it wasn't worthy of the vetting that needed to happen, yeah, I feel it the next Tuesday in the department meeting, man. I'll do quite often with a scale thing saying, okay, progress, 1 through 10, give me how you feel progress is here. I've gotten 2s on certain issues. It hurts, man, it hurts because I represent the city. That being the case, it's good to hurt because then you know to grow from it. You know to gather the team again and learn and make a better decision. Like I said, I'm not afraid of a C. D's I really don't like. F's I won't tolerate. We will redo it until we get better than that. And then we're going to amend those other parts to get better. Terry, you wanted to speak, and now you have to speak because you raised your hand.
So far, this council has not made a decision that sucks.
Thank you. That's not getting you a raise.
Coming from a department head and a taxpayer.
All right, excellent. Andrew?
I would like to see lots and lots of input from the department heads.
Absolutely.
Just, yeah, lots.
Just so you know, even when that comes to the case, I have a quote on the back of my thing that says, "Give it the weight it deserves." And what I mean by that is actually truly estimating that weight. When I talked before about the wage that we will be hiring for a administrator that virtually has the infrastructure for 25,000 people, even though we're 75,000 people, it has the weight it deserves. That's what we do. We put pickleball out there, and there's about 3 people that live in the city that play pickleball. I don't care. There's wonderful people enjoying our parks. That's what counts. Healthy people with, getting out there and enjoying an amenity. But at the same time, giving it the weight it deserves. If they came to me and asked for another thing, I would say, okay, what are you bringing to that table? Because our taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for that, if that makes sense. So we need to understand those restraints that we work with in that. The department heads having, like I said, Terry brought up a past employee that 10 out of 12 would speak really highly of, and 2 might speak really horribly about. And I'm not saying that. Well, what I'm saying though is, you give it the weight it deserves. Does that make it about a 9, or an 8? You give it that weight that it deserves. You're right. They should have a fair amount of input. Yet at the same time, that administrator takes what we see from the people and puts it into action. So knowing that, once again, this goes back to understanding the relationship of a CAO. He has to know his employees. Once again, will we go back to a culture of fear at all? No. No.
If I could add for my fellow council members, I agree with what you're saying. I think absolutely giving things the appropriate weight for the appropriate context. What I would like to ask of my fellow council members is, if we're going to all say we would like department head input, I think it's important to make sure that they know that they were heard appropriately. And in every organization I've worked in, I have seen executive leadership who has asked for input and listened to it, or asked for input and not listened to it, or not asked for input at all. And I can see the effects on morale in all 3 of those categories. If we are going to ask for input from our department heads, we may not follow it all the time, but we need to at least make it clear that we heard it.
Just to prove that they were listened to, and this is just in case some of them decide to watch this video, they asked for, and it was specifically somebody who's available timely, so that they're appropriately in office, so that they're available timely. And it's not exactly an 8 a.m. thing. It's when they have a question, can they get a hold of somebody? The next part was available to work with, i.e. batting ideas back and forth, not this is how we'll do it. Somebody who's willing to coach them, even if they don't know, because when you hire a professional, they definitely come with the academic, they come with the experience, they come with other variants of experiences, and it's not, we do this because that's the same old way we always did it. That's not it. They also asked for someone who works with you. That doesn't mean micromanagement. You have different levels of different employees that need different amounts of direction because of the weight of whatever decision they're making. So these were the things that they definitely stressed that they would like in the next city administrator. And I told them, I said that culture of being a team player is definitely been held dear, and will probably, well, I can't say definitely be represented, because gosh knows what could happen, but we've heard them. I will work for those things even in the sessions of working through the candidates.
I just want to say one thing too. Somebody that's not afraid to develop people in their skills. you know, if it's, you know, Jim Gossage or Tom or, you know, any department head, when they see a skill in somebody and they want to help that person thrive, I want our next city administrator to help foster that attitude as well.
Thank you. Once again, this is just the first of working sessions. The quicker we have them, the more we can put out a work product, but at the same time, I wanted to be thorough. Did I miss any department head input, Terry, that you? Oh, it was pretty. He was there.
It was pretty resounding that we wanted somebody that was available, maybe had, and I don't think you have to put that you need to be in the office from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday type thing, but I think the council, hopefully in this next hiring, holds that administrator more accountable than what we've seen recently for office hours. Because I'm not gonna work 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. on most days, and then, you know, a lot of days till 6 at night, and then have to try and get a hold of my administrator to work on a project at 2 or 3 in the morning. It just doesn't work.
Thank you. Once again, as I said, Tuesday mornings can be somewhat interesting when you reflect the other half as far as that goes. But it had to do with that working with the coaching. I mean, they're almost all same cultures that when you hit those characteristics or things, it'll traipse over into the other areas. But all right, next part, work product chasing tails and deliverables. And this just goes to even how we budgeted in the past. We budgeted basically like there was a pie. We were going to cut it up this way, and then we would borrow for the 20 toys every 2 weeks, every 2 years. So that's how we either caught up or did whatever. And if you could turn a blind eye to a lift station that needed to be fixed or whatever, you turned a blind eye. This is the same thing when it comes to our administrator being able to handle all the tasks. We had that wish list, and we talked about it. It's a big wish list. And then as you adjust and you work towards this or that they can adjust that, but that we also have an understanding of what that means. Where does that sit? And how we achieve incremental growth versus fast and rapid growth. If you looked at your work week and how many hours you spent on anything, we absolutely need this done by this, or something different. Now that's policy, but in our policy, how do we put our work product that we want done in that forefront, whether it's in the job description, if it's in the ordinance, if it's, we're definitely economic development. Once again, we've given to the county at 18,000 at this point. Is that really what it's worth to us, or is there more to working? And they all envelope each other. So they layer. There's no doubt about it. But just chasing our tails not good, and it's really not good for a administrator to do with deliverables. The last administrator, one of the things he did was when he listed something on his work plan, he delivered on each and every single one of those things. The council chased its tail on, well, we want this, 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 and this. And I probably was at fault with that too, being the mayor, because you have to make adjustments. How much time is available to adjustments? How much time is available to that part of the job description? Now we're at full staff. There was not, I don't think we hired anybody during that portion. So you could say HR was nil or anything during that portion. Yet we've hired for the last 9 months quite a bit, which is a lot of interviewing, a lot of onboarding, a lot of those issues. I want us to have some direction where we understand where that person's going to spend their time and respect that time. That allows the accountability of work product, as you can say, well, you spent that much time on that thing. You did whatever. The example of Zach filling in, just even coming in, was there already was a board up in that office that had a bunch of projects and things that we're working on. Well, we've checked off all those projects, which is pretty darn cool, but he had a very direct idea of what was there to get done. We need to have that, so it's not every 2 weeks at a council meeting we change that directive and we give them something new or don't respect the fact that something's only 2 months into a project that might take 6 months. Grant writing, you brought up grant writing. We had to know which grants we could go after that had purpose and/or changed the culture, the different parts of our city. So he shored up the CARES Act and stuff like that quickly, because that was where we were worried that we would lose a lot of options during that time. Did a good job with that. Now moving on to housing in the CBDG, if you do this, which marketing firms will apply for that and whatever, and is already working on then the streets and what's moving on next with our department heads. We also have some very, very, very talented department heads. Do they want to be worked more? Absolutely not. Yet at the same time, can work product come from them? Yes, when need be. Anybody want to add to this one or discuss it? David, you're shaking your head. Okay. This is a blame fault thing on us, you know, and it's a hard one to swallow. But it truly is on us because our policy is to set this straight for the next person to succeed. We have not done it. Mm-hmm. I mean, probably back to Christina or anybody else, and, you know, Terry can say, they come in with an idea. Christina was the last, was she the last one that put together our plan? Or, not master plan, what's it called? Comprehensive plan. Yeah, it was the last one, 2016. Nobody else has been able to wrap their head around it because it changes too much. I mean, when I came in here, the first thing I did was parks plans and set them all aside to see what we did and whether or not we delivered on them. We didn't end up delivering on much of them because we spent the whole time spinning, which is how we got behind. He raised his hand first.
Well, the thing I wrote down is the council needs to be on the same page with the directives and what we want, you know, our administrator and department heads to do. We also need to have clear visions for our future and where we want to see Rhinelander heading.
I sent out a Facebook thing that just said, time doesn't matter if you don't know your direction. And it was a compass. And it's true. You can waste a lot of time and you might get some stuff done that puts you in that direction, but you can't put the big picture together. Tom?
Carrie actually turned her microphone on.
Okay. Sorry. I'm not used to looking at lights versus whatever versus what.
I'll go after her.
I just wanted to say that, in my opinion, I'm a firm believer in having like long-range plans or comprehensive plans or something like that, and then having the smaller goals, to measure your plan by. So the fact that we had those work sessions, I think, obviously need to continue, and I know you mentioned that you were going to do it every 6 months or so.
Told the department heads, be prepared at the beginning of the year because I'm not going to do Christmas. That's just a little iffy, and that's right after we get done with the budget. So.
Right. But I think that it's important for us as council people to hear from the department heads themselves. So not only do we understand what's going on, but they know that we care enough to know what they're doing as well. And we have to work together in order to move anything forward. So I think to continue those sessions would be great, but also it's to have, a bigger plan. And I know we have a comprehensive plan, but like you said, it hasn't been touched in how long, and it's probably outdated now. And I'm not saying that that's something we have to tackle right away, but I do think that we need to have some goals set out there in order to start taking them away.
To tell you the truth, the comprehensive plan could be a lot shorter because the 6-month and the 12-month goals start to describe the direction anyway.
Right.
And also we can refer back to that big plan and say, does this fit in there? How does this fit in here? Jeremy Belio was a prime example as far as the parks getting done. We put before the people these beautiful master plans, and he wanted to start his garage. I said, explain to me how having that garage will execute this plan. And he could. Perfect. That's exactly what we need at those 6-month and 12-month goals. We have the accountability of we deliver to our constituents what they're asking for. How are we doing it? That's up to you. Mm-hmm. And the next part is micromanaging. Those sessions help us just understand where they're at. Terry, the general overall feel after those work sessions where they were just happy to be heard, am I not correct? And to have those opportunities to just speak to us about what their dreams are and what their visions are. They're there every day. You know, we can have a vision for what they do, but it might not have reality, or it'll be short-sighted compared to what they could do, or it's too far-fetched for them to try to achieve. They're the expert on that, so we will continue those the whole time also.
I agree with what both of you guys said. I think that's absolutely dead on. I also think it would be helpful as we're going through the work progress of whatever project we're working on, constant updates would be nice to let everybody know exactly where we are on specific things.
Those should come out in the department, like it's bi-weekly right now. So you should be able to get that from the bi-weekly.
Okay.
If not,
I think he
then.
means the public.
Well, no,
Yeah,
not
but it's
the-
still for public consumption because it goes out in your packet.
I mean-
They can look it up. Now, they can come forward, or you can ask during a council meeting, because they've already also given that time to come forward there to say, this is what's happening. Once again, I've told you that one of the real difficulties here is how to process that information and share it and move it along. It's a daunting task with the staff we have, period, point blank. The first thing we did was we took away weekly, not first, but pretty quick, weekly briefers to bi-weekly, because tell you the truth, setting aside that time just sets you back in something you could be doing. Today when I was doing stuff and I got the RFPs from whatever, I'm like, how am I supposed to evaluate those in the time to get to this product and score it? So I deliver it to council and it's a group that's going to deliver it. This is the best RFP we've waged through, because it's 720 pages. So when you're looking at 720 pages, for me to report on all, if you said, well, I want to know what the other 7 said.
I got, David, I wish I could speak like you, because that's not what I was getting at at all.
Okay, sorry.
But, no, don't worry about it. I meant for the administrator, not the department heads letting us know where they are on the work
Gotcha.
progress. We are not to direct department heads or anything like that. That's not our place. That's what we go to the administrator for. So an update, when we have a specific thing that we ask the administrator to look into for us.
Yeah.
They're updates, constant
just so you
updates
know,
of where
too,
we are on it.
and I'm going to explain some of that culture. When I talk about the culture of Rhinelander,
Yeah.
Our last administrator gave great updates.
Yeah.
Great updates at
Yeah.
first, and then they were used against him and hammered him for not doing other stuff.
Right.
So when it comes to updates like that, if you give an update and there was a shortcoming that week, or you change direction or whatever, we as a council need to know.
Yeah.
They are the CAO.
it goes both
and
ways.
it almost
Yeah.
doesn't come with dialogue. That comes with he's just reporting to us what he's doing.
Right.
Because that then becomes a tail chasing, where he's like, okay, so I sent out the update. They wanted to know where this was. Now all of a sudden I need to do this to make that product move faster. I completely understand the need for knowledge, but even like this is an overstep of what we need to do as government, where we're putting it out in front of people, because this discussion could be happening behind closed doors or anything else, because we're not deciding anything.
Right.
Yet we're being transparent. They want to be transparent too, but man, oh man, the workload that goes through that office and through City Hall right now, and anywhere else, is astronomical. You take COVID changes and how that changed, and who reports and when they have sick leave and whatever. It changes so fast to get that information out, little less to report to you as to how that happens. That's why it's not a micromanage from your position. Yours is COVID. Are we safe in the city? Yes, we've had 2 outbreaks, and that's natural because that's in the percentage, whatever the case might be. I understand that want to know. I really want to know everything that's happening. At some point, I just need to say, hey, HR, go hire these people. Tell me when you find quality candidates. The council values talent. Understand that.
Sure.
That's...
Yeah, and I'm not saying looking for specific detail, just so I've been working on this, it is moving forward. That something as simple as that,
Yeah, that won't...
Or we're at a standstill on this, or
That won't cut it at some point, and I'm going to tell you why too, because even as you're sitting there and you hear it a couple times, I've sat there before I sat up here, and I was like, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that?
Yeah.
It's a very naive notion to believe that certain parts can move that fast.
Right.
You know, we ordered a backpack sprayer, right, Terry? And it was March, was when it first came out. You came out with yours probably within April. And May, I probably said, yes, I want an extra one that we can spray down city buildings, so like after this. We got it yesterday. So if you were to ask that, you'd be frustrated, just like we were, but why have the whole world frustrated at the fact that everything's back ordered? It's just a simple thing. So just getting it's moving forward, it's on there, or at the six-month goal thing, say, all right, this was listed as your 6-month goal, where's that? Well, that's on hold because we can't order lumber for twice
Right.
the price right now.
Yeah, and that's the gist of what I
Yeah.
was trying to say.
I know. Once again, I'm setting this up all for
Yeah.
the next person to be able to have those conversations. And I'd like to have more work sessions like this where you can hammer me all you want or ask, because I like talking to everybody and
Yeah.
telling you where we're at. I do. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's then you taking the time out to come here. And it is for free. I want everybody to know that. It's for free. Work sessions are not a paid stipend. So you're taking time out to do the work that needs to be done, and I applaud you tenfold. Even when you ask me questions that I might get like, oh man, I got answers. No, I don't care. You care enough to be here, I will answer those questions. Our department heads would be here. You know, honestly, if we have one that's specifically about budget, Wendy would be here, and anybody whose budget was in there would be here. They care enough about their jobs to do that, and you guys care enough to do it. We are set on a path to succeed tenfold.
I just have one more question, I guess.
Yep.
And this is for, well, the 2 department heads that are in this room right now, right? Where is your guys' confidence level in us making the right decision at this point, from what you've seen from us so far?
In this council?
Yeah.
I think the confidence is high. I really do. I think we're excited about the fact we know that you're willing to actually listen. And that's the mayor's talked about culture change. And I truthfully believe that the department heads feel that there is a culture change and we are moving forward.
I agree too. There's less, I think there was some fear before and now I think that the trust is coming back, and I
Good.
think we believe in you.
That's important. Thank you.
Anything else to add as we take this homework home and digest it a little more, and then go ahead and just put it in my mailbox next time you come around, or like your thoughts or wrap-ups of some of this? And then probably at the next council meeting, if you want to suggest an upcoming work session as far as a date, or you can throw dates at Val or myself as far as that goes, as to what works. That being the case, you know, we are right at that part of we're actually at the part of the budget where we know that there's cuts to make from our proposed budgets to the reality of it, so that's hard discussions, hard looks, or whatever the case might be. But yeah, just keep the dialogue alive. I'm not afraid. I'm not bothered by anybody calling me or anything else either. And I'm obviously brutally honest with where we're at with it. Terry, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay. If not, lights on.
Yeah, I just got to say one thing. I apologize for my discussion earlier. I don't know, I think back to this whole, you know, and I get kind of angry just
Yeah.
because we were new to council and we really didn't know where we were at. And
Yeah.
the train kind of derailed from that moment on, and it just kind of irritates me, so.
We are moving in a by far better place where we.
100%, and that's part of the reason I joined,
Yeah.
is to make a
There's,
change, so.
just so you know too, from the constituents, as I report to council, from my constituents, the people that come up and talk to me, they're excited about the direction Rhinelander's happening. We have people coming back that want to live here, from being downtown, even in business. People that have grew up here 20 years ago, they came back, and this is a wine bar thing. They have a winery, you know, they have their own vineyard out in California. They can't believe the stuff that's happening in Rhinelander. They've not walked downtown like this before. And this is during a quiet period. Last summer was even more exciting. So we have a substantial amount of good things happening in this city. The growth potential's there, some direction, and we're getting there. We're getting there. Like I said, I appreciate you guys just being here for the work sessions, because And Gerald for being on at home, thank you. Yeah, you're still on mute. All right. I don't have any idea, but he's smiling. But, so we're done. Thank you.